On the morning of February 9, 1855, a series of unexplained hoof-like footprints appeared in the snow covering over 100 miles of Devon, England, with reports of the strange tracks coming in from over 30 different locations. By the end of this examination, the viewer will be left to ponder the identity of the individual or entity responsible for this enigmatic event, which has remained unsolved for over 160 years. The footprints, which became known as the Devil's Footprints, were first discovered in the town of Topsham, where a resident reported seeing a line of strange tracks leading from the Exe estuary to the nearby village of Limpstone. As news of the discovery spread, similar reports began to emerge from other towns and villages across Devon, including Exmouth, Dawlish, and Teignmouth. In each location, the footprints were found to be roughly 4 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, with a stride of around 8 to 10 inches. The local population was both amazed and intimidated by the appearance of the footprints, with many speculating about their origin and significance. Some believed they were the work of a prankster or a group of pranksters, while others thought they might be evidence of a wild animal that had escaped from a local menagerie. However, as the investigation into the footprints continued, it became clear that the explanation was not so straightforward. One of the earliest and most detailed accounts of the Devil's Footprints was provided by a Reverend G.M. Musgrave, who reported seeing the tracks in the town of Exmouth. According to Musgrave, the footprints began in the estuary and continued for several miles, passing through fields, gardens, and even rooftops. Musgrave's account was corroborated by several other witnesses, including a local farmer who claimed to have seen the footprints crossing his property. As the news of the Devil's Footprints spread, the local authorities became involved, with the Devon County Constabulary launching an investigation into the matter. However, despite their efforts, no explanation for the footprints was ever found, and the case remained unsolved. The investigation was led by a Superintendent William Rowland, who interviewed numerous witnesses and collected evidence from the various locations where the footprints were found. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Devil's Footprints is the fact that they seem to defy explanation. Despite the many theories and speculations, no one was ever able to provide a convincing account of how the footprints were made or who might have been responsible. The footprints appeared to have been made by a single entity, given the consistent stride and lack of any other accompanying tracks. This has led some to speculate about the possibility of a human perpetrator, although the sheer scale and complexity of the footprints make this seem unlikely. The immediate aftermath of the Devil's Footprints saw a significant amount of media attention, with the event being reported in several national newspapers, including The Times and the Illustrated London News. The report sparked a wave of interest and speculation, with many people writing to the newspapers to offer their own theories and explanations. However, as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, the interest in the Devil's Footprints began to wane, and the case was eventually forgotten. But one question still remains: what could have caused the appearance of these strange and unexplained footprints, and who or what might have been responsible for their creation? The lack of physical evidence and eyewitness accounts has hindered a thorough investigation into the Devil's Footprints, with the only concrete leads being the numerous reports from local residents who claim to have seen the footprints on the morning of February 9, 1855. One such resident, a farmer named John Rowley, reported seeing a set of footprints outside his house in the village of East Budleigh, which he described as being approximately 3 inches long and 2 inches wide, with a stride of around 7 feet. Rowley's account is significant, as it suggests that the footprints may have been made by an entity with a significant physical presence, although the exact nature of this entity remains unclear. As the investigation into the Devil's Footprints continued, a number of theories emerged, including the possibility that the footprints were the result of a wild animal, such as a large dog or a deer, that had wandered into the area. However, this theory was quickly dismissed, as the footprints showed no sign of the characteristic features of animal tracks, such as claw marks or scat. The Reverend George Musgrave, a local vicar, also suggested that the footprints may have been the result of a prank, possibly perpetrated by a group of locals who had used a wooden or metal template to create the footprints. However, this theory is also problematic, as it fails to explain the sheer scale and complexity of the footprints, which covered a distance of over 100 miles. The Devon County Police were tasked with investigating the devil's footprints, and they began by conducting interviews with local residents and gathering any available physical evidence. However, their efforts were hindered by the lack of resources and the limited forensic technology available at the time. In a report dated March 10, 1855, the police noted that they had found no signs of disturbance or evidence of foul play in the areas where the footprints were seen, which has led some to suggest that the footprints may have been the result of a natural phenomenon, such as an unusual weather pattern or a geological event. One of the most significant persons of interest in the case is a man named Robert Southey, a local writer and historian who had a reputation for being interested in the supernatural and the occult. Southey was known to have been in the area on the night of February 8, 1855, and some have suggested that he may have been involved in the creation of the footprints, possibly as a publicity stunt or a prank. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and Southey himself denied any involvement in the incident. As the investigation into the devil's footprints continues, a number of questions remain unanswered, including the identity of the entity or individual responsible for creating the footprints, and the motivations behind this action. The lack of physical evidence and eyewitness accounts has made it difficult to develop a clear theory, and the case remains one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in British history. What do you think explains the appearance of the devil's footprints in Devon, and who or what might have been responsible for their creation? The discovery of a similar set of footprints in a nearby village, dated February 10, 1855, raises significant questions about the initial incident, as it suggests that the entity or individual responsible may have struck again, just 2 days after the first appearance. This new information challenges the prevailing theory that the footprints were a one-time prank or hoax, and instead, may indicate a more complex and calculated series of events. By the end of this examination, the viewer will be left with a disturbing truth: the complete lack of concrete evidence leaves the true explanation for the devil's footprints of Devon elusive. The first theory, proposed by local historians, suggests that the footprints were the result of a wild animal, such as a deer or a horse, that had escaped from a nearby farm and wandered through the area, creating the tracks. However, this theory cannot explain the uniformity and consistency of the footprints, which appear to be deliberately placed and lack any signs of hesitation or deviation. Furthermore, the fact that the footprints were found in multiple locations, including rooftops and walls, makes it unlikely that a wild animal could have created them. A second theory, put forward by some experts, proposes that the footprints were the result of a cleverly designed hoax, perpetrated by a group of individuals with a knowledge of the area and a desire to create a sensation. This theory can explain the consistency and uniformity of the footprints, but it fails to account for the lack of any witnesses or evidence of human involvement, despite the large number of people who reportedly saw the footprints on the morning of February 8, 1855. Additionally, the fact that the footprints were found in areas that would have been difficult to access, such as rooftops and isolated fields, makes it unlikely that a group of individuals could have created them without being detected. A third theory, suggested by some researchers, proposes that the footprints were the result of a rare atmospheric phenomenon, such as a ball lightning or an unusual weather pattern, that created the tracks. However, this theory cannot explain the shape and size of the footprints, which appear to be deliberately formed and lack any signs of natural erosion or weathering. Furthermore, the fact that the footprints were found in multiple locations, including areas that were sheltered from the weather, makes it unlikely that a natural phenomenon could have created them. The investigation into the devil's footprints of Devon remains incomplete, due to the lack of physical evidence and eyewitness accounts. The most significant piece of evidence missing is a clear motive or explanation for the creation of the footprints, which would provide a crucial link between the incident and the individual or entity responsible. Without this information, it is impossible to say with certainty what happened on the night of February 8, 1855, or who or what might have been responsible for the appearance of the devil's footprints. If you've heard something the official reports missed, what do you think happened that night?